morning. Thanks for having me. So, yes, as you stated, there have been strikes on approximately 250 sites inside of Syria overnight and counting. We see a lot of activity from the IDF. I think this is largely, of course, a response to the fact that we have now a terrorist organization, another terrorist organization that is seemingly taking control of the country. So, while of course we're very, very happy to see the downfall of Assad and the hideous crimes against humanity that he has been committing for many years against his people, that doesn't necessarily mean we're out of the water when it comes to the future of Syria. This is a terrorist with a $10 million bounty on his head who is now seemingly in control of Syria. So it is a little bit too soon, as you heard before the UK Prime Minister state, it's a little bit too soon to fully celebrate a free Syria, but we're hopeful and optimistic about the future, while cautiously taking care of business, so to speak, when it comes to dealing with chemical weapons facilities or weapons, missile production facilities inside of Syria.
What would the Israeli government be looking for from the rebels, from HTS, to show that they might be an organization that Israel could try and do business with?
Well, we've heard statements from a few of the leaders that they are interested in some sort of negotiations or perhaps even peace in a longer term, should they take control of Syria. But we also have to caveat that with the fact that we've heard that before from these types of groups, from terrorist organizations, and that's not quite what they did when they got into power. So a lot remains to be seen in terms of what Syria will actually look like. Will they respect minority rights? Will they respect the Christians? Will they respect the Kurds? Will they respect some kind of peace or at least a ceasefire of some sort when it comes to dealing with Israel? We just don't know yet. We just don't know what they're going to do when they're in power. And that is why you've seen the IDF make, territorial gains when it comes to the Syrian side of the Hermon at the top of that mountain, giving them a military advantage. And of course, when it comes to, the risk of having chemical weapons potentially in the hands of wanted terrorists who are really a spin-off of ISIS. So we are, cautious, but optimistic about the future.
Emily, prior to you coming on the show, we played some clips, some audio from your Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who spoke of the Israeli initiative against Hezbollah being one of the key factors in this. How accurate is that in your view?
Oh, I think that's entirely accurate. I mean, I think one of the biggest successes of Israel's campaign against Hezbollah has been ultimately the downfall of Assad. Now, it wasn't Israel who fired the gun, so to speak, who actually brought down the regime. But of course, Israeli strikes against Hezbollah leaders helped influence this. And I also want to say that the Kurdish advancements in terms of cutting off those smuggling routes for Iranian terrorists to send in weapons to Hezbollah is a huge, huge win for Syrians, for Lebanese, for Israelis, and really for all of the Middle East. And the fact that we see the Islamic regime in Iran being deterred from this with the fall of Assad is a huge, huge success when it comes to dealing with and fighting against the axis of resistance, so to speak.
Lastly, Emily, what do you imagine Israel would want to see from nations such as the UK and the US? What position would they want them to take?
Well, again, I think, as we stated before, and as we heard the UK Prime Minister say, we just don't know yet. We need to see how Syria is going to govern. We need to see how the HTS is going to cooperate with the other groups in Syria, the Kurds and the other minorities that exist within Syria, and we just don't know yet. So in terms of U.S. support or UK support, it's too early to say. But we do think, I do think that it's really important that we have support from Western democratic allies when it comes to preemptively taking action against what I mentioned before, the chemical weapons facilities and other weapon production sites that could fall into the hands of terrorists. And because we don't know yet, that's a risk we can't really take. And of course, that acts in Israel's self-defense and in Israel's interest. But even beyond that, it's actually in the interest of everyone involved. We don't want those kinds of weapons falling into the hands of another dictatorial regime, what could be another dictatorial regime. And we need to act until we know that that's not going to be the case.
Emily, grateful for your time today. Thank you. Emily Schrader, American-Israeli journalist based in Tel Aviv. And now over to you. Let's tell you a little bit about the new rebel leader, Abu Mohammed Al-Julani. He's someone who celebrated 9/11. He's got around 20,000 soldiers behind him. They're described as heavily armed and fanatically motivated. They've fought battles from across the Islamic State, Syria, obviously Russia and the US. So that's a little of the background. Obviously, he is, by his very nature, a terrorist leader. It's an organisation that's prescribed here in the United Kingdom. What should the official reaction from the British government be? As it would appear, we don't know, but it would appear Julani is interested in power himself. Do we recognise them or do we not? That is one you can answer, because obviously the whole area is in a state of flux. But you'll have a view on a terror leader. But bear in mind, other people have led terrorist organisations and they've been accepted. Quickly give you the headlines. You can imagine what they're all about, quite rightly. Assad is toppled, but his worst to come. Seems a fair one, actually, from the Daily Mail. That one. Delight in Syria as rebels force Assad to flee to Russia is the Daily Express. Assad flees to Moscow is the Daily Telegraph. And the Guardian. Rebels seize Damascus as Assad flies to Moscow. It's the front page of most of the websites as well, including, quite rightly, LBC's. Starmer welcomes end of barbaric Assad regime. That's one step, but just how far should the British government go? And Mail Online has a picture of Assad's escape tunnels. It would seem miles and miles, a massive luxury underground network which allowed him and his family, and I imagine his key generals as well, to move around undetected, I would imagine. Of course, that would have been built years and years ago. He probably knew what the end was going to be like, so he's getting in position. So what should the British government do? Atiq in Windsor. What should the British government do, Atiq? Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, sir.
The British government should do as they've always done and not deal with terrorists.
Right.
Prescribed terrorist organisations, we shouldn't be dealing with them. We don't negotiate with them, apparently, do we?
Not in the past. Certainly, that's a famous Thatcher line. But if he's helped, if of course he has changed, and if he's helped topple al-Assad...
Are you serious? He's changed.
Yeah.
He's a terrorist, ISIS and ISIS.
Right.
He dressed in black and took off heads. And you think he's changed?
I don't know. But certainly, they're certainly very delighted in the streets. So people can change. We once had a pope who was a member of... Atiq. We once had a pope who'd been a member of Hitler Youth. People can change.
We've also had popes that, yeah, of course, that's fine. But are you trying to say at the same pretext, then, if Hamas came in the same way, you'd accept and forgive them for what they've just done?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. But okay, I don't know that you should automatically bolt the door in the face of someone who might be part of bringing some kind of liberation to the millions of Syrians. I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, as a journalist, then, do you think it's a coincidence that one day that the Lebanon ceasefire is agreed, the following day this invasion occurs in Syria? Secondly,
I think there are multiple factors at play.
Secondly, if you can bear with me a second.
Sure.
Secondly, Israel just called a ceasefire with Hezbollah because it cannot win. And the only way Lebanon gets supplied its armory is through Syria. So now that Israel is the first country to invade Syria and protect its borders...
Well, it's not invading, is it? It's launching airstrikes. It's not got boots on the ground.
It invaded it. Yes, it invaded it. It's got boots on the ground, it's got military, and it's got tanks there. How about journalists do their work and some research?
All right. You're in a very... I only asked a question, Atiq. Can I suggest you try the decaf tomorrow? You're in a very angry mood, but I'm grateful for your input. Thank you. Is the United Kingdom ready to work with the rebel leader, Al-Julani?
Well, I can't say that yet. As you'll know, this group, HTS, that he leads, is a proscribed group, not just here in the UK, but in the United States and in some other countries. So not right now, but let us all see what the future holds and whether he lives by the statements he's been making in recent days.
Do you think he can have transformed himself?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's going to be about show, not tell, isn't it? It's going to be about the character of what happens rather than statements. Is
it time that they looked again at the status in this country for HTS?
That could happen. I don't know how long that will take. It will depend on the character of the regime that develops there and what happens on the ground. And the truth is, no one can be certain about that at the moment, because there's not just one armed group here. There are many armed groups in Syria, and they often occupy and rule different parts of the country. So it's all very fluid and uncertain right now.